Lots of young people hitchhike. It seems like a good way to get from one place to another, but sometimes there are dangers involved that never meet the eye. Let's take the case of Jimmy Barnes. Jimmy played baseball all afternoon, and he didn't feel like walking home, so he decided to summer ride. He'd done it 100 times before, so he didn't think anything was unusual when the driver struck up a friendly conversation. In fact, he seemed like a real nice guy. He asked Jimmy if he played baseball in the park often. Jimmy told him they practiced 3 times a week and played a rival group on Friday afternoon. The stranger was a good listener, too. They stopped at a drive-in, and the stranger treated him to a Coke. During their conversation, he told several off-color jokes, but Jimmy had heard others before, and, well, it made him feel big to so easily win the confidence of an older person. The following Saturday, they went fishing together. By now, they were using first names. Ralph said it was friendlier. Jimmy hadn't enjoyed himself so much in a long time. Then during lunch, Ralph invited him back to his house. Now Jimmy knows he shouldn't be interested, but, well, he was curious. But what Jimmy didn't know was that Ralph was sick with a terrible disease. The sickness was not visible like smallpox, but it was no less dangerous and contagious a sickness. It was a sickness of the mind, you see. Ralph was a homosexual, a person who demands an intimate relationship with members of their own sex. By now, Jimmy felt a fondness for Ralph, and they continued to go to places together. Ralph was generous and took Jimmy many interesting places and did many nice things for him. Ralph bought presents and even gave him money, but payments were expected in return. Dirty, unspeakable payments. You see, Jimmy hadn't recognized Ralph's approach, and Jimmy should have discussed it with his parents or teachers when Ralph first asked to go fishing. Finally, Jimmy told his parents, and they reported it to the juvenile authorities. Ralph was arrested, and Jimmy was released on probation into the custody of his parents. Now, not all homosexuals are passive. Some resort to violence, as in the case of Mike Merritt. In the heat of competition, no one noticed the man who sat and watched, and when the game broke up and others left, Mike decided to stay and practice a little longer. The stranger joined him and was friendly, but it was better than playing alone. After a few more shots, Mike realized he'd already overstayed his welcome and suggested he better leave. The stranger told him if he'd like to stay longer, he'd be glad to drive him home when they finished. It sounded great to Mike. It was a chance to play longer and get a ride home, too. When they were finished, the man told him he would make a fine player someday if he got lots of practice. The championship and praise of the older crowd dispelled any misgivings Mike have had about going with a stranger. He probably never realized until too late that he was riding in the shadow of death. But sometime that evening, Mike Merritt traded his life for a newspaper headline. As Denny and Jerry got the papers ready for Jerry's afternoon delivery, they only casually noticed the two boys that raced in the afternoon heat. They didn't pay much attention to the car that pulled up shortly afterwards, until a man called them over. He asked if two boys had been on by bicycles. The boys nodded, and he asked if they could recognize them if they saw them again. Well, Denny guessed he could, and the man said those were stolen bikes, and without giving another thought, Denny got in the car and sped off. Jerry watched. He had been told many times if a friend got in a car with a stranger to write down the license number. It didn't seem to apply, but fortunately he marked it down. When he delivered a paper to Denny's house, Jerry asked his mother if they caught the boys with the bicycles, but Denny's mother told him he hadn't returned, so he told her the story and gave her the license plate number. Being a careful parent, she called the police. Jerry supplied the necessary information on the stranger's car was quickly spotted. This is a good example as to why it is important to always get the license number and description of any stranger who takes a young person off alone, no matter what they tell you. Public parks can often be a hangout for the homosexual. Bobby hadn't noticed a man who had been in the trees when they climbed. Bobby realized he had left his jacket and told the others he would catch up. When the man cornered Bobby in the trees, he realized he shouldn't have left his friends. After all, being with your friends is more fun anyways. If Bobby had made a wiser decision, it may have saved his life. The decision is always yours, and your whole future may depend on you making the right one. So always be wary of strangers. If they are too friendly, try to win your confidence too quickly, or they become overly personal. Be wary. One never knows when the homosexual is about.